one important aspect is, have we defined, what we want to evaluate? Let's kind of, hear that out first, because there are a lot of challenges, a lot of, problems that were also discussed in the earlier session. But I think all that boils down to one point is, when we do a project, are we defining what we want to achieve, or what results we want to achieve? Are we defining what we want to evaluate? I think that's the starting point, and I would like to kind of, start with Rajesh here. Thanks, Rajesh, for joining us. So how do you do that? I mean, when you kind of, work with any implementing agency, you select a project, what are you looking at? Is it just implementing a project, or from a measurement point of view, from an evaluating corporate purpose point of view, what are the aspects that you really look into?
Thank you, Lucas. See, when we talk about impact assessment, I'll talk about two perspectives, from NGO's perspective as well as from corporate perspective. Any social projects that any company under the CSR or even not under the CSR taken up either directly or indirectly, baseline study is a must. I cannot go to a location and I cannot say that I'm here to, help to the deprived community because there is a problem of the hunger, malnutrition over there, or there may be education issues. You don't know. You don't know what is the fact. You don't know what is the top priority social cause happening at that particular location. So if a company is operating in an environment, in a location, in a geography, first thing any company does, my company is also doing the same thing, baseline study. What I'm trying to say you right now, this is something what we have been following since last few decades, whether it's talk about the big corporates or mid-sized corporates like us. If it is not under CSR, if it is just like that, if like industrial relations kind of activity, obviously the company's idea of intervention is more towards environment as well as the community. But if it is coming under CSR, the company would look for the kind of small to mid-life of interventions that fits under their own budget. Now you need to understand the difference. If it is not under CSR, there is no budget constraint. But if it is under CSR, there is a budget constraint. So while while talking about the baseline studies, you might be having 3, 4, 5, 6 interventions coming out from that assessment that you have to address into that areas. So based upon your budget or based upon your priorities, you can work on that. But the similar thing is not happening when you are, doing it beyond CSR. So beyond CSR, there is no limitations, there is no obligations. But under CSR, there is a financial limitations you already have. For example, I conducted a baseline study where I came to know that some part of my, business activities are polluting the environment. That could be point number one. Or there are some issues in those areas where I'm operating. Farmers are not doing good, or maybe there is a sanitation issue. I can address to that. So I came to know about that these are 3 top priority areas where I can intervene. I started working on that thing. I know the geography. I know my target audiences. I worked there for 3 years to 5 years. After 5 years, I would rather come to know that after my intervention, year number 1, year number 2, year number 3, whether I have been successfully able to, create any change in the community, I have been able to bring any change in the community or not. So that has their own parameters. Like 60% people, those who were, never been to school, they're now going to the school because of my intervention. So suppose I changed some, my filtration system in my factory, and that added to the environmental aspects. Or I created some facilities where I I gave an opportunity to the local farmers to gain some, some additional income through maybe horticulture and all. So whether that has been done, whether that has been achieved or not, that parameters and to reaching that parameters is the main thing that I think corporates are looking for.
Okay. So I think coming back to that question of mine, in terms of defining what we want to measure, is kind of, ingrained, and you rightly said that, under what context you define that, whether it is a regulatory requirement or whether it is, a company's own interests. But I think one aspect which I liked is, you define those parameters. I mean, there are technical terminologies, you do a needs assessment, you do a baseline, you do have a log frame matrices, you define your indicators under those log frame matrices, you define activities, outputs, outcomes. A lot of that happens, in terms of an evaluation. From a implementing agency point of view or an NGO point of view, because we have, maybe in a statistical term, if I say, we have a kind of a skewed participation here, Rajesh only representing a corporate here and my other co-panelists, from an implementing agency. So I would like to come back to Shilpa ji as well as, Ritika ji. I mean, from an implementation agency or from an NGO point of view, how do you kind of, see this, when one has to define what one wants to evaluate, right? I mean, getting that done through an impact assessment agency is kind of, very straightforward job. But I think what we want to measure is a very important job. And how you, maybe Shilpa ji and Ritika ji, what is the contribution from an NGO point of view? Are you involved in that? Or do you see there is a larger role that NGO has to play in defining what we want to measure?
I think as an NGO, what you really want to look at to begin with are your stakeholders, who really benefits from it. And for corporates, before they put in any funding, it would make sense that you work with an NGO partner that actually aligns with your cause. So if you're looking at health, look at an NGO that's perfectly working with health. That way you're actually impacting the right people you're setting out to in the beginning. Having an impact study in terms of an NGO works because you know what you're doing makes sense, because you know you're actually changing people's lives, as opposed to not knowing where your funds are going. The impact study works both for corporates and for NGOs equally, in the simple way that corporates will finally understand that what they're doing is actually changing people's lives. A lot of the time, I think CSR funding is given out just because it's part of the budget that needs to be ticked off, not because of the cause you're looking at. And it would make sense if you actually looked at the cause before you sent out that budget. Work with people that are actually doing work, not the funds that are going to sit in. And an impact study proves that what you've done makes sense. I think, Shilpa?
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Ritika. Thank you for the question, Lokeshi. So I think in Jan 2021, we had the mandate with this amendment added. And it's been 2 years now. I think 2 years is a lesser time to just say that, okay, most implementing agencies and nonprofits are involved in defining what impact assessment really is for a project. But I think with the partners and corporations that I've had experience of working with in my fraternity of people, of fundraising professionals work with, I think in that context, we do see more progress, more inclusivity in understanding what impact assessment impact definition is. It starts from impact definition actually. I would say that just not the baseline, midline, endline, but also in terms of the transformation, the sustainability of the transformation. Because one side is the numbers, the other side are the positive change stories. But to keep that transformation going in a sustainable way, and how much an implementing agency is really part of the definition, we'll know probably 5 years is a good timeline. Too early to really give any data sets without that, but yeah.
Maybe I'll just add, if you have one example, because that will make it very, very clear, when we say, Is it the number that we are looking at as an evaluation, or is it the transformative change we are looking at as an evaluation?
So, yeah, so this is very tricky. This is best of both worlds you need in impact, right? Like, any project doesn't work for a singular change. It works multidimensional in most cases. Numbers is a very, very big part of it, but those numbers should churn out and show transformation year on year. So sustainability is an equal part of it. And positive change impact stories are the power in the boardrooms. You know, this is what reaches the directors and, you know, the decision makers in corporations, even public policy deciders and government agencies who are supporting making bigger plans for the grassroots. So those stories, they touch the heart, and the numbers show you the scale of the problem that is at hand, that is not getting solved with just few people coming together. Yeah.
Wonderful. I think maybe we can, based on that, conclude that, you know, maybe we are still in the nascent stage. I mean, as you rightly said, it's just 2 years that, you know, some kind of a guidelines have been come up. Although there is a development sector, you know, who is working and doing evaluations for more than 100 years now. But specifically with the limited budget constraint, as Rajesh rightly mentioned, under the CSR space, maybe it is too early, you know, for the whole ecosystem to develop, you know, even in terms of defining the evaluation parameters. I would like to come to Mr. Surendra ji now. You know, Surendra, thanks for joining us, you know, from Nepal, and you're doing some wonderful work. But coming to you, I would like to see, I want to know rather, is the beneficiary, I mean, that's a very tricky word actually, or the stakeholders, let's use that word, you know, which is more right word, I would say. Are they also part of, you know, in defining, you know, how a program can be evaluated, or is it like always comes from top key? These are the 4 indicators, you know, you go and try to find out, you know, how these indicators are performing on the ground. You send somebody, collect data, analyze data, and present it. Or is it like something also comes from, you know, the beneficiary or the stakeholders on the ground? How do they look at, how do they look at, you know, that project that they're receiving, or the benefits that they're receiving?
Thank you. Yes, we are at a very early stage in Nepal. You know, there have been business houses that have been doing CSR since a long time, but then only in 2016-17, the central government, for the first time, directed the banks into CSR. So they had to set aside 1% and do accordingly. And during that time, the banks, the financial institutions, did this more of a branding gimmick more than a CSR. You know, and then slowly, by the end of 2020, the government directed all the business houses that they have to direct their 1% of the net profit into COVID-related activities as part of the CSR. So, as you asked, it's since we are at the prime stage, it's more of deciding at the top. The business houses, the financial institutions decide what to do, and still they are looking at branding more than a CSR. How would the brand get more recognition? How the brand would be more seen in the market? Then how they can do that? So, but here, you know, like I said, they are looking at the brand, but us, the NGOs that are implementing, we are not getting exactly CSR benefits from the financial institutions or business houses. So in my case, I had to lure one of my friends who is a bank manager to give us some CSR funds, and I said, we'll do this so that your bank will benefit. So what we'll do is, we're working with single women, we will develop a program that's financial literacy, so that they get to know what financial literacy, how to do savings, and in return we'll also ask all the mothers to open a bank account. So that is the way I had to lure them into CSR. So still at the top in Nepal.
Yeah, so I think just to summarize, you know, what you are trying to say here, may not be the stakeholders as a right representatives of, you know, the people who are defining how to evaluate the benefit that they are getting. The NGO is playing that role, right? So if somebody looks at the real development sector, where increasingly it is felt that it is not only the implementing agency or the corporate who has to define, but it's the beneficiary. They also have a stake in the benefit that they are receiving, and they also should be consulted in terms of when you evaluate a project, right? So thanks for that point. Coming to the framework points of view, because most of the evaluations, and the earlier panel discussion was also mentioning about, is there some framework or is there some standard that, one can compare to and say that, okay, this particular project, that we have evaluated is a much better project. This particular project, we evaluated is, not that much better, so let's scale it up, something which gives more value for the money. So Rajesh, any thoughts on that? I mean,
there is no specific standard that has been followed, that's for sure. But yes, there are some SROI techniques that basically we follow and we check. Suppose 100 rupees you have spent in certain categories. What are the social return on investment that is, the company is getting back out of that? Obviously, that is not in a monetary term. But yes, to calculate each and every penny that has been spent in a social cause, there is a international parameter that is showing, suppose 100 rupees is spent into that particular cause. You can measure it into monetary terms. Suppose there is a happiness. Suppose there is a confidence level increasing, for example. So these things cannot be measured into monetary terms, but there are some international parameters which showcase that. Suppose the confidence level is growing, and that confidence is, trying to implement or maybe pull somebody else to, in a different area where she was supposed or he was supposed to not to go to school, or he or she was not able to get that benefit. But now, when the confidence level have gone up, now he or she is able to get that benefit. So to measure that, when you're doing social impact assessment, the SRI techniques are basically followed. Now the thing is that everybody is talking about this 2% CSR in India. See, I just wanted to highlight here, we're the first country in this world who, we had a constitutional amendment regarding this. And Nepal is the second one who is following our footsteps, they're having, this 1%. And frankly speaking, there is a huge lot of opportunity regarding this social impact assessment. If I talk about the amendment, I personally not agreed to what the amendment says. The amendment says that if you are having total CSR budget of 10 crores and any project that is 1 crore or beyond, okay, then you are eligible for a impact assessment. If I don't have any 10 crore budget, then I'm not eligible for I'm not liable. I mean, the government cannot force me to do impact assessment studies. But while I'm doing some certain, CSR project or maybe social impact project, or you could say social development project in the community, it is obviously my liability or it's my responsibility to understand that whether that project is going in the right direction or not. I mean, suppose even if you want to, continue the relationship with the NGO, you also need to understand the NGO is working and that work is getting impacted to the community or not. And how will you know that if the impact assessment is not there? So that's how we are conducting midterm impact assessments, but it's beyond the law, which we are presenting to the board, not to the MCA. And companies, those who are doing this impact assessment within the law, beyond the 10 crore purview, I would rather say that they are just trying to showcase the numbers, and which is a good thing, which is not any bad thing. Talking about the SDG goals, yes, the areas that we are working, maybe I'm working on hunger, maybe I'm working on scaling, or maybe I'm working on sanitation. So we are trying to align that we are contributing to this percentage to the SDG. That's how we are trying to showcase.
Right. Okay, thanks a lot for that. Coming back to Ritika ji, you are working with children as well as, I think in the early childhood care and development space, if I'm not wrong. So just one question, how do you see this? Is emotion important? Or the effectiveness is important? Why I'm saying that, because many of the evaluations that I read, people refer to this OECD framework, where you have those 6 categories of efficiency, effectiveness, coherence, sustenance, impact, all those. And most of the reports, bring in that effectiveness components. Again, SROI falls under that. So what is it important? I mean, do you think, emotion is important, or effectiveness is important, or a mix of both?
So to put it very simply, when we talk about 10 crores, one school kit is 150 rupees. So it is
On?
Yeah. So if you look at it that way, and we're talking about crores of rupees here, and I'm thinking of the number of school kits I can buy as we talk about this. Is the emotional aspect important when you run an NGO? Absolutely, because that's all I know. That's all I understand. However, what happens as with a lot of corporates and a lot of funding, somewhere along the way that gets forgotten and it becomes just about the numbers. And that's where I think we tend to lose focus because, and I think it's basically about humanity in general, how we forget that each of us can make a change. So as if each of us cared about our neighbors, our community, and if each of us did that little bit, I think Mr. Rashid from Oman was talking about, the little bit that he did earlier. Your impact begins at home. So if you measure your personal impact, I think the larger scheme of life is just much simpler to sort of accept. In terms of the emotional efficiency of what you do, I think as NGOs, especially working in developing countries, there are days where you're just scratching the surface, and there are days where you think, okay, I've done one thing good today. It's never enough. So coming from that aspect, I think the emotional aspect is totally important, yes.
Yeah, I think I'll just, maybe Shilpa ji will be the right, because she is into fundraising. So what does sells more? I mean, if I can
She's
kind
right,
of,
she's right. But see, the thing,
put it-
thing is that has to be communicated to the MCA also, Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Okay. So, see what happens now. Suppose you have CSR 1, we have CSR 2. We are also filing the data, numbers, everything that has been asked to us. So far, we have not been asked any specific format and impact assessment that you have to publish. But I believe, that's my guess, that when that will come from the MCA, they will ask, kitne number aapne kiye? How many lives were impacted? Numbers, percentage, and all. So I also do expect my NGO partner to cooperate with me, okay, in that way. I know these emotions, feelings, touching from heart, working from heart, that is there. But also I need a little bit of support. Maybe every corporate will look for that. If that support is there, then obviously it's a win-win situation. Here, I just wanted to add one more line, that this is the only one point where these big fours and consulting firms are taking this opportunity from the NGOs. I mean, they're easily, presenting to the corporates that we can show you the impact according to the SDG goals, how the companies can present to the board, and how the companies can present to the Niti Aayog or to the ministries. Okay, there the NGOs or the impact assessment agencies are lacking down. Okay, it's obvious fact that obviously they are working through the heart, their genuineness is there and everything is there, but when it talks about presentation, data, bar chart, diagrams and all everything, NGOs a little bit lack in that way, and I won't be surprised if government comes with a certain kind of tool and enforces every implementing agency as well as the corporates that boss, this is the format, give us the data and what impact that you have made through your CSR intervention. That's the whole from my side.
No, I think again, that's again a reiterating point where we're discussing that, we're still in the nascent stage. I mean, it's not only the corporate, but also the implementing agencies, to understand the importance of numbers that they carry. It's not always the emotions, or it's not always the numbers, but somewhere, the marriage between the two has to happen, in the days to come. But coming back to you, Shilpa, so when you go for a fundraising, what is it? I mean, again, is it emotion? Is it the numbers? Why I'm saying is, somewhere that is also, as a result of your evaluation, you are presenting a particular project or a particular concept on which, you or your organization had an earlier experience, you have measured the success of that, and you try to kind of, scale it up, you go to the donors. So how do you take it up? Because somewhere that evaluation is also linked with that, is what I feel.
Yes. So yeah, as a fundraising professional and the fraternity I can talk about, I think impact is our biggest USP. that can stand out, along with obviously the process with which you reach there and the efficiency. But it is, in terms of numbers, play a very, very big role. I think the bigger the ticket size of charity, the higher focus on number that they look for. And as a non-profit partner's representation, we have to always try to, push the envelope towards excellence, push it towards transformation, ground level changes, and how much can that happen? Because if you are only in the race of numbers, the real impact can get lost at scale. And that is gets truly visible in extremely highly scaling projects not thought through in terms of, the model of it and things like that, and execution plans. So as a fundraising professional, impact is extremely essential, particularly how it gets communicated. Just not the stories or the numbers, but how you're also communicating. There are very, very many communication tools around this to do the same. Also I feel this has been really empowering for implementing agencies, non-profits, with the law coming in. Because the access, handiness, and rapport that a corporate or a philanthropic foundation can really have is through grassroots. And they are the ones who go there, get information on the kind of need for impact. And so they have to be part of the process. I do see that they are being part of the process. And in terms of fundraising also, we do get asked these questions. That, do you think this would be important? I actually have an example of a recent meeting where we were asked to choose a particular tool to evaluate impact. And it was really refreshing to see such committed donors who are so inclusive, who want to take you along in this journey and, want to make it such a wholesome and holistic process for everybody. So that has also been, so I'm hoping that we could take from 1 to 10x in this year. So, such partners and partnerships and collaborations can really turn around impact assessment and how it is looked at.
Thanks a lot for that. So, I mean, it's not, I think the whole ecosystem is developing, if I just put it in a very plain, simple way. So I think
Just
we
one
have...
more thing I just wanted to add here. Sorry, I'm interrupting between that. See, government is coming up with an innovative idea. You might be knowing about the social stock exchanges and all. As you know that in every quarter, the company has to publish their own results. Now, based upon that, the performance and all, whatever the expected rate of return or what expected sales, expected profit, based upon that, you might have seen the stock prices goes up and down, right? In the same way also, the government is trying to, create a social stock exchange where NGOs and social sector organizations will be listed. Based upon their impact assessment, based upon their impact, obviously they can attract investors into these social sectors. CSR fundraising can also be done through that. And simultaneously, you were talking about the ticket size. I'm telling you 55% or 50 lakhs, whichever is higher. That's the norm of the government, right? So you can understand where we are right now, where we are going, and what is the market size. So that's what I just wanted to add.
So it ultimately boils down again to, how are we defining it, right? And involving all the stakeholders together.
Has to be
Very true.
quantifiable anyhow.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
Yeah.
Very true.
So the floor is open if somebody has any questions.
Hi, my name is Indrani. I am the founder of Synergy. We are a not-for-profit organization, and we basically work with large corporates and implementing their CSR programs. So I think, one of the really important ingredients when it comes to assessing impact of corporate processes is technology. And what I feel is that impact assessment should not be a midterm to an end-term process, it should be an ongoing process. And the way we can enable this is by leveraging technology, and it's very simple. You know, the projects that we implement, there is no pen and paper anywhere, there are no Excel sheets. It's all mobile apps, it's all dashboards, digital dashboards, and everybody has access to the data at the click of a button. So the first thing that you do is you sit with your corporate partner and you identify what are the KPIs, you know, what are those indicators on which you wish to move the needle. That's the first thing. So that, you know, that takes care of the emotional aspect, which is the quantitative indicators, the qualitative indicators, and also the numbers, which is the, you know, the quantitative indicators. So you identify the indicators, you track it on a dashboard on a regular basis so that you're able to make those course correction from time to time. So one of the downsides of this is that, you know, you're collecting a lot of data. Some of it may be personal, sensitive data. So how do you ensure that, you know, data security, data authenticity? So there are various tools, you know, through which you can manage that, but, you know, those are things that you need to take care of. So just wanted to highlight that technology is a, you know, and technology adoption in the CSR space is really, really increasing fast. So this is something which I think all corporates and all implementing partners should also look at. Adopt technology, use digital dashboards, and, you know, do an impact assessment on an ongoing basis.
Very true, very true. I mean, yeah.
I totally agree to this. I would just want to, just plus one and mention that for nonprofits particularly, this is a space for a lot of grassroots NGOs who do not have these capabilities. Capacity building with tech, particularly after Jan 2021, has increased so much more in terms of the learning spaces available. And also upskilling, finding the right resources, human resources who can run and enable technology for grassroots, because that is what most partners are wanting. When you talk about any stories, any capturing of impact, I think without technology it can't be done at all. So thank you for bringing that point in.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks for the comment made by technology. One thing from business perspective and from strategic planning, and I've done it to many organizations, that you need to map the country vision. For example, if India, they have vision India 2030, 2040, whatever, this need to be mapped, okay, from that level and something even above that level, which is the SDGs, to the corporate level, to the section, to the project itself. There are many organizations who come to me and they said, we failed to get money or to get donors, or we failed to really talk about our project. They failed because, as I've said earlier, they did not do their homework. If you cannot map the project that you do from simplest, from the first level, take it up to SDGs level, and even if there is anything beyond that, then unfortunately you will lose track. So the easiest part is to do that. And don't tell me that, oh, you are talking about India 2040, for example, vision. How I will be able to know? It's easy. You can easily connect that, and you can make an impact, you can evaluate, and you can get social return investment by that. I bet some organization that when they come to and talk to me, this is the last thing, I can tell them that from the project that you have, you can get at least 5 times the amount invested as a social return. And they said 5 times. I said, yes, it's easy, because you need just to do some strategic, use the technology, use the data, you know, so you can build up a case. The bottom line for all of us here, please do your homework to build a good business case. Remember, the organization who give the money, they have a business mind. So you need to think about what attract them and what make them want to give you that money to invest or to give back to the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, may I just ask in terms of, I heard something about branding and aligning with the branding of your supporters. This is a very candid question. Where do you find the compromise? Because we know that there are some companies, on my experience, that would like us to achieve a certain percentage in the impact or the result, but you know it is not really feasible based on your experience. And then my second question is in the technology, very good point. But how can we adapt this, especially for developing countries like in the Philippines, where a lot of the communities that we have do not even have a working internet? So how can we make use of this, this dashboard? In fact, even our weighing scales are not yet calibrated. We cannot even get an accurate weight for our baseline levels. So those are the two challenges that I wanted to ask for any of the panelists.
Thank you. Regarding branding, you know, it's the companies that are looking for branding, but then the government and the central bank has set aside the terms of support, like social projects as education, health, natural disaster, or financial literacy, and so on. So it's easily traceable, and then since the projects are already outlined, so the branding is there, but then the social activities are 100% done. Thank you.
What was your second question? I forgot. Yeah, technology, see, yeah. Even if for developing countries or developed countries, I'll tell you one thing, that technology will kill everything. I mean, if the kind of manual work that we're doing right now, it's not going to happen in next 10, 15 years. You might have seen the introduction of AI in each and everything. Even I'd rather say that AI has entered into development sector. Right now, suppose she is going to visit a corporate house and presenting somebody regarding a social project. Might be you are trying to raise some fund from one of the corporate or any one of the NGO partner or maybe any international donor. So just imagine one thing, a situation where you don't have to visit their office, rather sitting at your own place, you just give them a kind of virtual reality kind of headset, showcase them the kind of community to whom you are trying to link. Let the people from the corporate boardroom directly go to the location where you want to bring the impact through the VR set. And you are connecting to them that these are the people to whom I am not trying to connect, and this is the situation right now. By your intervention, I am expecting KPI 1, KPI 2, and KPI 3 has to be done. That is point number 1. Point number 2, you might have seen that there is a earthquake or maybe there fire is happening and huge disaster is happening and human intervention is limited, probably. You can introduce robotics over there. Robots can go there and do the rescues and all, everything can happen. And this is happening. All these things are slowly and steadily capturing the market of social development. Third thing, suppose you are into humanitarian aid and people are not having their houses. You have taken an oath, or maybe you have, asked your funders that I'll be supporting their houses. So by the help of 3D printing, you can do the things a very fast way, and that visibility can be seen in within 3 months, 2 months, or maybe 7 days. So technology by hardware and as well by software, integrating our lives, and even if you accept it or reject it, it will dominate and it will come. If we are not able to accept it, then obviously there are organizations who will be accepting it and implementing it, and they'll get the market. That's all.
So in the last panel, they were discussing about the term duplicacy, and in the communities where we work in, we are very much aware that all the government programs are implemented in all the thematic areas. So when we, per se, for suppose education, we are implementing any project on that theme, don't you think while calculating the impact, while evaluating impact, we should consider the efforts of the government and other external factors affecting our project?
Okay, that's a fantastic question. In fact, it brings me back to how Smita was talking about someone, I mean her CEO, who asked her why the child is not in IIT yet, and she was still trying to build bathrooms. A lot of the time, I think organizations in India supplement what the government already does. So we're not we're working with them. So we're trying to fill in gaps where, which automatically come in a developing country. It's not something that we can avoid, as with most third world countries. For instance, we've got schools where we don't have enough teachers. it's nobody's fault. It's just that nobody wants to live in that village or teach. So what can an NGO do in that section? You could provide teachers. You could encourage kids to go in and study. So there will always be instances of duplicacy, for instance. You and me could be working in the same space. However, India being as large as it is, I think there's enough space for all of us to do a little bit. And I don't think there's ever going to be an issue where you won't have work to be done here.
See, just one line I just wanted to add to you. If we talk about duplicacy, duplicacy is acceptable when you are putting one project, you are doing one project, and under that one project you have done multiple fundings from different sources with multiple kind of thing. But suppose there is a project you have fractioned into different parts, and one part you have given to another donor and another part you have given to another donor, so that is acceptable. For example, suppose there is a school infrastructure development program. One organization or maybe one corporate is sponsoring your toilet construction or maybe sanitation facility. Another company is trying to develop a kind of library or maybe smart classes and all. It's not duplication. That's completely fine, and we are supporting the government things. That's okay, acceptable.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot to all my panel members here for a wonderful discussion. So just to conclude, I think what is the need of the hour is having these evaluations bottom up and more kind of inclusive is what I can conclude from the discussions we have. So thanks a lot for spending your valuable time.